Ready to roll?
Thank you. Oh, actually, I think
Those are $10 each.
no, these are my favorite ones. Not $10. Good price.
Okay, we'll get going. We have a quorum. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regular meeting of council to order. First item on our agenda is a public input period. If anyone wishes to address council at this time, you have 2 minutes of our time. Please come forward, state your name, and you have our attention. I see Ron. Please, Ron. Yep.
Hi, good evening. Be brief. Nice to see you again. I came to council in January of this year with the crazy idea of creating a City of Rossland time capsule. So this is just to update you and bury the project, let you know where we stand. Like I said, I came in January. My task after leaving here and you giving my support was to find a partner, a society that I could use to help me apply for the CBT community grant. Katie in the library generously took me in, and all her expertise was crucial to the project. We formed a committee: Katie, Renee Clark from the Chamber, Mike Maturo from the city, and Fletcher Quince from the Rossland Art Gallery. We made a great thinking tank for this project. We had a lot of revelations along the way. The marketing was throughout the 9 months. It was continuous, and it kind of built near the end. We had lots of media releases on the radio and printed and online publications. We had mail-out flyers to all the Rosslanders, posters from Shelley Ackerman, Rossland Summer Market. We had presence. Nelson the District Credit Union had us on display for a month near the end with all the contents of the capsule, and that really inspired a lot of last-minute entries. The luggage tag concept was another marketing concept, and Golden City Days publications and being involved in their annual celebrations was a perfect fit. Like we said, we had a sealing ceremony in Golden City Days to kick off School and City Days. It was in front of the library, attended by close to 100 people, which I thought was a great turnout, quite intimate. The capsule itself, if anybody didn't have a chance to see it, was about the size of a large suitcase. It ended up weighing, with all its contents, just shy of 100 pounds. Had over 100 items of it and represented over 76 different groups within Rossland. That ranged from individuals, businesses, community groups, you name it. Schools. We did some great fundraising from the CBT grant. We got 2150, Tech, Columbia Power, and Nelson District Credit Union all gave us $500 for a total of $3650 to work with. The capsule, we had to trim a few ideas. The capsule, I guess, like a hearse. I mean, is there a point in going too extravagant? So we kind of got this cheaper model, but it still was $1,000. The bronze plaque was $700. Everything, preservation materials, marketing. Dell Photo did a lot of free work for us, but I wanted to reward him for all his help. So we paid some bills. And the contents themselves, I other than all the things that were contributed, I really had to. There's a few things I wanted to hunt and gather myself, and some things I kind of made known what I was doing, and some we just purchased. And then the site prep and drainage. If you're not knowing of the tale of the hole, we dug a hole outside the library, and as soon as it was 3-4 feet deep, and it just started filling with water. We didn't hit any pipes, we didn't break any lines, it just was seeping from a drainage ditch. And I was telling the mayor, that's digging in Rossland. I think that was best case scenario. We hit it out of the park, but it did take some contract work to tidy that up. So we utilized the budget pretty well. I think along the way, the participation through the community, it grew as it went. People, I think, sat back because they didn't think their small idea or their small representation was grand enough to be considered. But once we've gotten into the community and people could see all the things that we're gathering, they could see, well, that my ideas fit into that. So we got a lot of momentum near the end as well. So the biggest revelation we made was we thought as a committee we'd have to try to decide who and what was relevant in Rossland. And I figured that would be the large purpose of the committee, and trying to decide what was going to be in the capsule. We quickly realized that we don't know what the people in the future would really consider to be predominant for us now, so that's a challenging thing. Like I said in a lot of media releases, it may not be the picture of our most profound person in town, or something, an item we cherish. It might be something that a 6-year-old student scribbles on a piece of paper. They may, out of all the items, they might find that to be the most cherished. So we don't know. So we really try to involve everybody, as small, as insignificant as they might have felt. That's really how we targeted it. And I want to thank council for all your support. No matter who I approached in the city, it was great. Everything from the city crews to the mayor to your planning department to everybody was terrific. And I've never taken on a job like this before, so I learned tons as I went. It was really rewarding. And I think other than the project itself, just being out in the community and being in the businesses and talking to people and being at the market and displays and media releases, my most rewarding part was that, just getting to know my community better, and this is a fantastic way to do it. I have a gift for council and the city. This is part of Mike Materials, Del Fono's work. I have that framed up for you guys.
That's great.
You might find a home here somewhere.
It will, for sure.
I've also
Very cool.
created one of these exact for the museum, plus the library, because that's where it sits.
It's a great perspective.
It's a good shot.
Maybe you can show the gallery too, right? Everybody sits there.
That's what a wide angle will give you, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
you can, yeah. Sure, we'll break it if it's on that side.
The capsule itself, like I said, is in the ground. The boulder is on top. The city plaque installing expert, Wayne, was away for a while, and I was up in Prince Rupert for a couple months, so we missed the window to install the plaque. It's living inside the library right now, and once we hit warmer temperatures next spring, we'll install the plaque. And that should wrap it all up. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Ryan, for all your work.
Thank you. Great job.
We recycle
There's a
it.
few bins out there.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Anyone else wish to address council at the public input period? Seeing none, moving right along. Motion to adopt the agenda. By Councilor Moore, seconded by Councilor Thatcher. Discussion on the agenda. Seeing
Probably
none.
gonna beep, just so you know.
Pardon?
Oh,
You're gonna
just
beep?
saying,
Okay. Well, you can beep during the agenda.
All right
On
then.
the agenda, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Adoption of the minutes, motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council of the 12th of 13 be adopted. Moved by Thatcher, seconded by?
I'd just like to make one.
Yeah, you can in a second. Fisher? Councilor? On the vote.
Yeah, on my members report there, the venue for the museum annual general meetings, the museum, not the Prestige.
Yeah, I see that was wrong in the press as well.
I think I mentioned it here because that's where it was supposed to be, but
Yeah.
they got changed.
But anyway, okay, so we'll change that. Okay, with that change on those minutes, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Motion that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of the 18th to 13 be adopted. Moved by? I know. Can I sleep on it? Moved by Moore, seconded by Fisher. Discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Additions and delegations, delegation of Rossland Council for Arts and Culture. Please come forward and you have 15 minutes.
Hello. My name is Renata Fleming. I'm the current president of the Rossland Council for Arts and Culture, and we're here today for our annual report. I'm here with Anne Damute from the Miners Hall Renovation Committee. We're also having a request regarding council support for that project. So I already sent the extensive report to you, so I'm just gonna quickly summarize the highlights of last year's activities. We continued with our regular programming that we had laid out in a strategic planning meeting. We had an 8-part performance series, concert and theater that had a variety of genres. We continued with our Joe Hill Coffee House series, which runs 10 months out of the year, and it's a great platform for the community to perform, and also an inexpensive way for people to come listen to music. We continued with our youth initiatives, the Real Youth Film Festival, the filmmaking workshops, and the Under 19 Film Fest. We also are continuing to administer and adjudicate the CKCA grant program. We continued with our RSS scholarship, and we also organized a special event in the fall, which was a 2-week craft celebration consisting of an art show, some workshops, demonstrations on craft techniques, some movie nights on crafts from different cultures, and a panel discussion on craft in the 21st century. And then we worked with different community groups on collaborating for certain events. We worked with the Kootenai Friends of Refugees, with the Public Library, the Real Food and Sustainability Commission on a movie on climate change, and the Rossland Writers on a literary event. We also are continuing in our special projects, like our public art projects, the permanent sculpture and the rotating sculpture, and our attic renovation projects. The city of Rossland contributes to our organization in a few different ways. First of all, with your $4,000 donation, which is immediately matched by the BC Arts Council grant, their municipal matching funds portion. You're also contributing by letting us use the Miners Hall for free for our events, and then giving us the assistance of staff towards our special projects in terms of their staff time and their expertise. The money that we get from the city goes directly to our paid administrator, which even though all our projects are volunteer driven, we do need the support of a paid person that supports all those volunteers with a variety of things, grant writing, report writing. Like, those things are best done by somebody that has the skills and make us look professional with our funding and sponsorship institutions. Last year we paid our administrator $12,000, but we leveraged $36,000 in grants that we got from different institutions. We do have a strong board, and we have many volunteers that we solicit from the community towards our events. This year we contributed and invested again into the Miners Hall. We spent about $9,000 this year, $6,000 towards the installation and the purchase of an LCD projector, which is permanently mounted in the hall. We spent about $2,000 on sound equipment and repairs, and $800 on chair cleaning, and that's coming up again in December. We are very committed to the Miners Hall, and we're working on the Miners Hall attic renovation project, and that's what we're here for as well today, to ask your support for in form of a letter. And Anne, who's part of our committee, she will talk more about that. Yeah, if you have further questions now, I'll be
Thank you.
happy
I'm
to
gonna
answer.
I'm going to ask Councilor Walson, she'll take the chair for a minute, because obviously I'm having a coffee fit and it's not getting anywhere, so. Councilor.
It's not December, but I'll
I know, but it's close enough.
Do I have to move over there? I don't have to move.
Sorry, but anyway.
Okay. Are there any questions for Renata?
Thank you.
Yeah, I have one. Thank you. I noticed that the administration fees in the budget for 2012 were $8,000, and then 2013 were $12,000. So how does that work? That's a $4,000.
You know how what
change.
happened was that it was just the way that the bills came out. Like when Rachel who was billing us at the time, she always lumped it together into very, big sums. So it's just that one of the big invoices that she sent came after year end. That's
Right.
why. It's about
So it's about $10,000 a year?
$10,000, yes.
And just out of curiosity, about how many hours is that?
We have a $20 per hour rate.
Right.
So,
That's
mhm,
inexpensive, right, really?
yeah,
That's good. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so Anne, I think it's your turn.
Thanks. Just before I get to our request, I'll just give you a quick update on where we're at with the Miners Hall project. When we were here last, we brought you our conceptual designs, which were developed by Thomas Lowe, who's an architect from Nelson. And at the time, we also asked for permission, that we had developed our fourth floor part of it, we asked permission to work with the city staff to roll the city's proposed Miners Hall renovations into our project and make it a single project so that we could then take it out to funders. A part of the reason for doing that is so that we could maximize the use of our resources and our time. So there's parts where things overlap. So if the city has to put scaffolding up on the outside in order to put new windows in or to put new cladding on the side of the building, we would also like to, there's some things that on our part of the renovation that would require scaffolding. So we're looking for some efficiencies and some overlap. We also were highly motivated, of course, if you have some money in reserve funds, that many of our funders are looking for leverage funding. RCAC has a little bit of money set aside, but nowhere near the $1 million that will probably take to do this whole project. So what we hoped is that by working with the city or rolling into a single project, that we'd achieve some efficiencies, that we could work together. Impact of the Miners Hall would be minimized by having the project occur over one single summer, and that we would also be able to maximize RCAC's raised funds and the city's raised funds by using those to leverage additional funding. So that's where we were when we see you last. Since then, we have met with city staff, and we've talked about how to roll these projects together. We've also met, and we're getting some good feedback on that. We've also met with two funders. We've spoken with Columbia Basin Trust about accessing a fairly significant contribution from them. And we've been speaking with Creative Spaces BC, which has a grant upcoming, closes I think December 9th. The Columbia Basin Trust Community Development Fund is a continuous intake, so we don't have the same types of deadlines with them. In our discussions, especially with Columbia Basin Trust, they took a look at our plans. They were really impressed that we were as far as we were in terms of our planning for the fourth floor renovation. But they strongly urge us to take the two projects and really roll them tightly together. In other words, develop a combined work plan for the city's planned changes and the fourth floor renovation, and develop a planned budget for both. And then at that point, bring that as a package to Columbia Basin Trust with a firm budget, an idea of what funds are already put in place. So we're kind of going, oh, okay, how do we do this? So we are also encouraged from, which brings me to my letter of request for support. Columbia Basin Trust suggested that we speak with the city and that we actually apply to them for a small amount of money through community development that we would call a planning stage, and access a small amount of money, more like a $10,000 or $15,000 type grant application, to bring these two projects together and roll them into a single budget and into a single plan. So we have a really good picture of what this project will look like. Their sense was that once we had done that, then we could come back to them and make a larger request, probably a sizable request. Our initial throw across CBT's, I don't know what you call it, our initial proposal was that we would be looking for somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 in support from them, and at least at a very most preliminary level, they said that was probably at the high end of what they typically give to projects like this, but not out of the question. So we really feel that if we do our homework and do a good job of this piece, then it will open up a very big door for us to be able to approach Columbia Basin Trust. So my first part of my letter of request was to ask for a letter of support from the city for our application to Columbia Basin Trust for planning dollars. And it will be a fairly small application, probably in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. My second request is for a letter of support for the BC Creative Spaces project, which will close December 9th. Because we won't have these two projects tightly rolled together into a single project, at this point what we're proposing, and since Creative Spaces is very much aimed at increasing community's capacity to engage artists and citizens in creative activities, what we're proposing is that we apply for that grant just based on the fourth floor project, since we have that very tightly costed and we have that sort of planned out really well. We think that we'll just do that, but we do, since it is the city's building, we will need a letter of support from the city that you're supportive of us going ahead with the overall project.
Might as well finish this off because I missed a bit.
Okay.
So those are my two requests.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? Councillor
Yeah, I
Moore?
have a couple. So, let's say you got the $250 from Columbia Basin Trust, but we're looking at a close to $1 million project.
Yeah.
So where else are you looking? Creative Spaces might be for the fourth floor, but you've got, all right, what other avenues?
And I think this is where we'll have to be really strategic and make sure that we really look at the funder and what they're interested in funding. And it may mean that we ask them to fund specific sides of the project. So Creative Spaces, we are telling that there is a bigger overall project, but we would ask them specifically for things that pertain to arts and culture, creative space type stuff. When we were here last, we did bring a draft budget that covered the $950,000 proposed budget, and at that time we were looking to CBT for between $200,000 and $250,000. We also proposed approaching Canada Heritage through their Cultural Spaces program. And that has a sizable amount of money. It tends to be oversubscribed, so we would have to have a really good project to take to them in order to get money. We would also like to approach Southern Interior Development, SIDIT, and really spin the economic sides of having an improved miners hall. Trying to think what else. And of course we would be looking to some of the local groups, service groups, credit unions, the typical community funders for smaller amounts of money, including potentially tech or 480 as potential funders or contributors. So we have some ideas. Whether we'll get it all or not is still a bit of a long shot.
Okay. Can I follow up to your question? I guess the intention of the RCAC then is to try to take the burden of this project off the taxpayer, to try to find that funding from elsewhere if possible. So the time frame probably is however long it takes to get the money together.
We would like, ideally, in terms of us starting to chase money now, we need to be able to tell funders when we intend to do it. And I think this is part of your ongoing discussions about capital budget, but I think for us, ideally 2015. And yes, our intention is where possible, not to, I understand that the city already has some money set aside in reserve. I think I know that's how much, when the city has that money, that's how much work you'll be able to do. So our intent is not to increase the burden on the taxpayer, but whether we reduce how much the city would contribute, and you have some in reserve, I imagine that would probably go into the whole project. I doubt it would decrease how much we would be asking from, or would go towards the project from reserve. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And Kathy, you had another question?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm just curious about, and this is probably a little farther down the road, but the follies are in there every summer, and this can't be doing the roof in the winter, so how would we work that? Would you be doing it in the spring before they get started? Have you conversed with them about how that would work?
We have, in a very preliminary type way, and I think that's kind of why we're looking for some guidance from the city as when you intend to do the exterior cladding and the roof for the building. In our scenario, we would ask the follies to relocate for the entire summer of 2015, and I think we would have to look at how we do that. I think there may be some opportunities with the school or the annex, depending on what thing, but it's not going to be easy, but it'll be easier if we do it all at once. So that everything that's going on in the miners' hall is basically relocated for that single 4 to 6 months, whatever it takes to do the whole project.
Okay.
Because it will impact on the main floor as well.
Yeah.
There's things that need to be done there besides, it's not all just fourth floor and above. There are some things that intrude into the main floor.
Okay. So you're good?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Thank you. So does the RCAC ever have any fundraising events, like, the Spirit of Red holds a dance and they do a fundraiser? Are there any intentions around any of those kinds of things? I mean, those are simple, they're not big money makers, but you roll out enough.
We have talked to the Follies about doing exactly that.
Mhm.
They were very interested because they're very supportive of that project.
Mhm.
It's a green room for the performers, and it's mostly like it's not a big money maker, but it's an awareness piece
Right.
that we are trying to pursue with the Follies next year in like some kind of event around that renovation.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, since I'm still sitting in the chair seat, thank you both for your work. I know all of you put in a lot of effort for the community, and I think that it's very beneficial, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, do we need a letter? Motion? I'll make it. I'll make a motion.
I was gonna do it.
Is that later in the?
Yeah, I think we got it later. didn't we?
Later in the agenda.
We can do it right now.
Okay.
I just need a motion and a second.
Make a motion.
All right, moved by Spear and that.
So there's two letters. The first one is the letter, whichever, what's the first letter there? The planning funding from CBT for accessing that money from the CBT for the planning phase of the potential project. However you want to word that.
Is there a seconder? More, what is?
Do we
no.
wanna just do them both? Do both letters in
Sorry?
one motion?
Seconded by you, thank you.
Yeah, we just, okay, fine.
Is this
The
letter of support, is it, sorry, I.
Yeah, I'll tell
have to
you.
leave.
So- oh.
But is it, to allocate money?
No, the letter of support is to support the RCAC so that they can go to the Columbia Basin Trust and access $10,000 to $15,000 for a planning phase, so that's...
Thanks for the clarification, that was seconded by Moore. Further?
Could we amend it and just do in one motion, do both letters? Or do we need to do two motions for two letters?
We got this one now, we could be really quick. On that motion, all in favor?
Yes, okay, fine.
On that motion, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Another one then, please.
Okay, and the second letter is, help me out here, I wrote things down.
It's a letter of support for the BC Creative Space Grant.
Yes, so letter of support for the BC Creative Space
Second.
Grant.
Seconded by Walls. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Delegation from the Youth Action Network. Kent. How come you're not staying?
Grant's right.
Oh, and I'm in the
Yeah.
way again.
You probably don't want to be blinded. It is brief.
I'm getting used to it. Are we doing the lights too?
Yeah, that's it.
It might take a minute.
Warming up.
It's always the technology. You know, when you do a presentation, it's the most nerve-wracking part. Hey, there it is. So my name is Mike Kent. I'm the coordinator of the Rossland Youth Action Network. Thank you for letting me come and speak to you. I want to update you on what's been happening with this new project, and I also have a request. But before I start, I want to thank my youth delegation who showed up, Logan, Tyron, and Johnny. It's their first time in council chambers.
Welcome.
So,
Welcome.
they've got my back. So, how do I advance this? Is it going to work if I do that? Oh, there we go. What it is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Rossland Youth Action Network is new. It's funded by the CBT Community Directed Youth Funds. I always mix those, forget what order those in. And the mandate of the project is to work collaboratively to build community capacity, to create programming for youth in the community, activities, events, and strengthen community cohesion of the youth in our community, and provide safe spaces for them to get together and do things. The reason this is really important, and the first 3 points are from terms of reference of the Rossland Youth Action Network. But youth are important community stakeholders. Our city gains when they contribute to our community and things and are involved in stuff. And I already said the community cohesion of youth, but there's a lot of concerns around that, around some of, our youth are being sent out of community for schools, and we want to provide opportunities for them to be able to get together as youth in this community. More importantly, I think for me, as somebody, I've been a youth worker for 15 years, and there's an organization out of the United States, they're called the Search Institute. They developed something called the 40 Developmental Assets. They've done research with over 3 million kids across North America, and the research holds true across Canada and the US. When kids are surveyed, typically teenagers, only 25% of them feel that their community values them. And only 32% of them consider that they're resources in their community, as opposed to, feeling like they're drawing resources. And only 28% of youth say they have adult role models that they can look up to. So I think for me, these are why this project is so important, is we haven't done this survey in Rossland. I was looking for some funds to do that, but they didn't come through. But maybe down the road, I'd really like to see what the numbers are for Rossland, but typically this is the average across North America. So I want to see those numbers change. I want to see them go up. So progress to date, we started in September. I was hired around the 18th. Did a youth planning session on the 30th. We had 35 youth show up. It was really crazy. And what came out of that was a whole bunch of ideas, but when I got them to vote, the top 3 things they wanted to do were parkour, which is what that picture is, leaping over stuff really. Have more opportunities for social things, mainly dances, and they wanted more arts programming. Those are the top 3 of a whole bunch of things. So that's been my focus for the last 5 or 6 weeks. So we have programming happening in all of those things. Parkour is actually happening right now at the Annex. There's an art program running, and there's Snowball, which was normally a RS thing, but wasn't going to happen this year. And we've taken it on with the 7 Summit School to make that happen in the Miners Hall. So we've been working on those things. And I have 2 more meetings with Youth Plan tomorrow at the library for youth grades 7 to 9, and on Wednesday a meeting with youth in grades 10 to 12 to figure out what else we want to do, what they want to see happen in the next 6 months. So the way we're running this is we have the core funding is the community-directed youth funds. They're giving us $25,000 a year for the next 4 years. That pays for my wages and some other things. And in the last month, we've received another $16,000 in grants. After that initial meeting with 35 kids, we wrote a grant to Columbia Basin Trust for another $15,000, which was just approved. The focus of that grant is May 1st to 7th of every year is National Youth Week. So what we put in that grant is that we want to have a really vibrant celebration of Rossland youth that week. And in order to do that, we need money to create programming leading up to it. So the art gallery's on board. We're going to do a youth art show. We're going to do the U19 Film Festival. I've been talking to the Arts Council, and we're going to move that into Youth Week. And so we're going to look at a really great week. So that's the reason I'm meeting with kids is I'm asking them, what are the things do you want to see happen? What are the things that would be great? Participation is given $500 for parkour, and we got an arts grant from Art for People. For those of you who know Andy Holmes and Martine Bedard, that's their fund that they create out of their art sales. So the city has been fantastic. You administer the funds. You pay me. I love it. It's awesome. I submit my invoice. I get a check. It works really well. And Rossland Recreation has been key. I can't say enough how much Robin and Pam have helped me out in getting this stuff off the ground as fast as it has been. My request in moving forward is I would like to ask that City Council consider allowing the Rossland Youth Action Network to use Rossland facilities free of charge. And I would also ask that you consider waiving the fees for Roslyn Recreation to do some of the registration stuff. So any money that's saved on these things will go into just, it'll mean more programming, more things that we're able to do for the youth of Roslyn. And that's it in a nutshell. The facilities, I guess, some of the facilities that we've used to date and would look at using are definitely the Miners Hall. We did a movie in the Miners Hall. We partnered with the Roslyn Arts Council on that as well. And there's some other programs. I realize it's not a Roslyn facility, but we're using the annex right now, and I'm really concerned with what's going to happen when the French school moves out and that's no longer available, because gym space in our community is really, like, I talked to Karen Lavender at RS, and like, when can I squeeze in there? And she said, from after school till 9 p.m. every day, booked solid. So I'm concerned about where I'm going to move a program like parkour into, or some of the other programs that are being talked about, because I think that that's a really important facility for what we do. Yeah, definitely the Miners Hall is probably the big one right now that we're considering using for more things. So I don't know if anybody, that's about all I have.
Great, if you don't need that anymore, we can get
Nope.
the lights on maybe. Okay, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. What I want to do, is there any questions? Councilor Wallace.
So those requests will be coming back to a future meeting of council, that's my assumption.
Or we could deal with them now. It's up to council.
I guess my question is, when you're talking about use of the Miners Hall, do you have any idea of how many functions that you're talking about?
Well, no, I have to ask the youth what they want. So moving forward, we're looking at 3 other dances for sure in between January and May that are being discussed. And then there's things like I have somebody who wants to offer hip hop if kids want it. Sometimes there's meetings, like I was going to use the Miners Hall for one of these youth meetings, but it was already booked, so I'm using the art gallery, which is all right. But so I don't know. I need to think about it more, and I could probably tell you better at the end of the week.
Okay.
You know, after I talk to the youth that show up around what's going to happen. Really, my goal around this project, some people initially wanted a youth center created. My philosophy, having worked with a lot of youth centers over time, is I don't like the model. It's kind of like, here's where we shove our youth, in my opinion. It's my opinion only. I prefer a model of, let's get the youth out in as many of our different facilities around town as possible. So I use the 7 Summit School, I use RSS, I use the art gallery, Minor Hall, the library, you know, and hold events throughout town. So my plan isn't to, if you approve it, to say, I'm going to do everything in the Miners Hall now, right? I'd still have that plan. It's just that facility particularly lends itself really well to a lot of
larger
events.
Yeah, larger events.
How big a space, how big a space do you need for meetings? Rather than get square footage or whatever, is this big enough for a meeting?
Potentially. Like, we're going to use the library tomorrow. My concern is actually we're going to be bigger than the space allows.
It's small.
If I had 35 kids show up the first meeting, I talked to every youth that's in Roslyn going to school today, from grade 7 and 9, and said, come.
Right.
And I'm bringing pizza. So I expect there'll be a lot of them. That's my...
I only asked that question because perhaps this facility could be used for a meeting of youth, which might be morphed into other things as well, right?
Right, there's some
But
interesting...
just
and
thought, that's
any of the spaces, I mean, I'll be honest that I need to kind of, for myself, inventory what's available. When I asked Robin about the Miners Hall and it wasn't available, she suggested the lounge at the arena, which I hadn't thought of. You know, like there are all those spaces. So the Miners Hall is the one that comes to mind for me the most because it's the one I'm most familiar with.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the options would be, here's what I have, what's the space that's most available, and Robin's definitely my go-to.
Okay, as to facilities then, with your request, I think it'd be better if you came back and had some kind of, let us know exactly what you want as to facilities. Then we could make a decision there, but like you say, there are definitely other facilities that maybe you haven't thought of, that, rather than using the miners' hall, which is, you know, we'd like to see some revenue generated there, as well as other facilities as well, but,
Right.
you know, maybe there's other ways that we can do that. So I've, you know, give it some thought and, as to exactly what you need, and let us know, and then we can make a decision then, because
Okay.
I don't think we could make a decision right now, could we?
We don't have enough
I don't
information.
think so.
You're looking at me, and I'm gonna say, yeah, sure. You can. Just say, use them all. Like, that'll be awesome.
Sorry, Mike, we can't.
That's okay.
Anyway, Jill,
I get
you
that.
wanted to say something.
Asking me if you can make a decision.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, thanks for the presentation, and we've had all of the other package that you have provided as well to look at, so very interesting. I have been the liaison for the Neighborhood of Learning Committee for, well, I don't know how long, as long as I can remember. And so was involved with the meetings early on when this whole idea of having a kind of a youth coordinator and this project. So I'm really excited to see it off the ground. I have a question around usage of the Miners Hall, the dances. What's that model going to look like? You know, supervision, or are we going to be, are kids coming from trail to, just, could you
Sure.
just give a
There's
few
been,
details?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's been lots of conversation about this.
Mhm.
So the way I've set this up is I have limited hours. So my intent is not to run everything myself. So around the dances, kids want to dances. So I've approached a lot of the youth organizations in town, one being Seven Summits, Interact,
Mhm.
skate park people, and said, here's a model I would propose. I'll support it. I'll help you organize it. You run it. It's your dance. Any revenue you generate, you get to keep. I take a small percentage for my part. So it's a fundraiser for them,
Mhm.
right? So then they have to provide security, and they get to choose how they want to run it. So for the Snowball this Friday,
Mhm.
there's parent volunteers, and there's out-of-town kids by invite only. So all the tickets were sold, or tickets were sold to Rossland youth only
Mhm.
for the first few sales, and then they had to submit a request form. This is similar to how it was run when
Yeah.
it was at RSS,
Mhm.
And their request had to be approved.
Right.
So we go down the list and go, is this, you know, and we know people who know people.
Mhm.
Is this person a problem? Any people on this list, are they a red flag that we should be aware of?
Mhm.
And so far, there's only less than 25 kids from out of town who will be coming out of 170. Tickets aren't fully sold. There's 50 tickets left.
Mhm.
So.
Thank
so
you,
that's
yeah,
the way that works.
that sounds good.
And I assume it's going to work. So Interact is agreed they want to do a dance in January,
Mhm.
and their first inclination was Rossland youth only, and that's up to them, not up to me.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And I have one more, oh, sorry.
Okay, and fully inclusive of the 10s to 12s that are now attending at the Crow?
Yes, anybody who
Okay.
lives in Rossland. I know there was a whole lot of. You should see my Facebook page
Mhm.
when that went on. The people, but we go to trail, but we go to school, and anyway.
Okay.
It was really,
Thank
people were confused. Yes, all the funds that have come are for Rossland youth who live in this city. If you live in Warfield, you're not covered under this project.
Okay.
Warfield and Trail also have these same funds.
Mhm.
They're choosing to spend them differently.
Mhm.
That's not our decision. So we are getting some pressure from some of those kids who are like, well, we like what you're doing up there. We want to be part. And so we're still working out. But we're not just opening the doors and say, it's definitely, we're prioritizing our kids here.
Thanks. Councilor Smith.
Yeah, just one comment. I think that the big idea around, this whole project and the initiation of it was to make sure that we are bringing all of our youth together as we are fragmented now with regards to schools. And I don't need to go backwards on that. However, so I think it's really important that so my question, I guess, would be, are there grades, the 10s to 12s that are at Crow, are they part of your youth action network? In other words, are they coming to your meetings?
Some. It's
Okay.
small right now,
Yeah.
so that's been the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
Karen Lavender, RS,
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. I walk in and say, can I go into your classrooms at some point? Yeah, you can go right now. I'm like, oh, okay. I go in and talk to them all.
Mm-hmm.
Seven Summits, open door policy.
Mm-hmm.
Crow, not so much. And in their defense, they're trying to be inclusive and get people, they don't want me, I said, can I go and pull all the Rossland kids who go to your school into a room and talk to them? They said, no.
Right.
I don't begrudge them that at all.
Right.
It goes against what they're trying to do. I have a few key kids down there, and it's starting to build.
Right.
So that's going to be a slower process, but it's working. There's 3 of the guys involved in the parkour stuff go to that school. go to Crow, and a couple of the key kids who've been helping us plan the dance, they go there, so there's like 5 really solid
Great.
youth that are going to Crow that are helping, and I think that's gonna build.
That will snowball, yeah.
That's what I'm
I
hoping.
think that's really important, that component, however you manage it and make it work, I'm sure it will,
Yeah, well, it's truly it's the hardest part right now.
because it's really intention, right?
Getting their attention
Mhm.
without going and standing at the bus stop. Some people
Okay.
suggested that. Feels like.
Any further questions, Mr. Fish? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
When you come up with some kind of budget or whatever, what you need, please come back and we'll deal with it then.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
On to item 7, recommendation for staff for decision. Oh, and by the way,
Mm.
fly hard and welcome to council and see you later. You can stay all night if you want.
Should be
No?
part of the program.
Okay, cheers. Item 7, a request for decision that council approve borrowing from the Municipal Finance Authority of British Columbia as part of the spring borrowing session for $4 million as authorized through the Columbia Avenue, Washington Street upgrade loan authorization bylaw 2554, and that the regional district Kootenai boundary be requested to consent to our borrowing over a 30-year term and include the borrowing in their security issuing bylaws. Is there a mover to that? Moved by Wallace, seconded by Moore. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. On to our council discussion with the draft community funding application form. We have the form. We don't really have a recommendation, but we did say earlier on that once we had our committee get together and put this form, that we would put it forth to the community. So first off, I guess any comments on the application form and the grant and aid policy itself? Councillor Spear.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find it.
Page 41.
Yeah, 41.
You gotta get rid of those things with apples on them.
Yeah.
Councillor Wallace.
Generally, I think this is great. I really appreciate how staff put this together. I think it's pretty comprehensive.
Staff and
Okay, thank you. But I'm wondering, the one line must be from a service club group, nonprofit societies, or charitable organizations. I don't know, the English in me, it doesn't read well, and I'm not sure why group is sitting there solo, so I can have
I'll
an
just
explanation.
kind of open this like the whole meeting. If you guys want to answer those questions, that'd be great. If you don't.
Where are you, Kathy, on that?
Eligibility criteria, it's in the policy, and I think it's repeated again, actually, in the
Oh, the
application.
eligibility, mhm.
So it just, for group, to be sitting there by itself doesn't make any sense to me. There's no definition for group. What does group mean?
Anybody
Well,
else?
there's no
No, no,
definitions, there's no definitions at all, actually, but besides that,
Well,
you take it out.
no, I don't think we should, because a service club would be somebody like the Lions or the Eagles, a service club. A group might be, I don't know, who would be a group? Nonprofit, somebody that's not a nonprofit, that is a group, like the seniors, for instance. The seniors, they're a group, they're not really a service club when they come and ask for their swimming, their discount for, down in trail.
Okay.
Yeah, Councillor, Ms. Butler.
I think it's also just to differentiate that it's not, it has to be a group, not an individual. So that's where I say it has to be a group. It can't be an individual.
Okay, that helps me to understand better.
Okay, anything else on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, on the form?
On any part of it?
okay,
Are you
yeah.
on the form itself?
I'm on the, wherever I'm supposed to be. I'm on page 42.
Right.
There's just again, the reading of the second bullet under non-eligibility, and it says, requests or proposals will be rejected that are received from applicants having received past funds that have not submitted an annual report, project completion report, or requested documentation from the city. I think it needs to be or documentation that is requested from the city. Is that the intention of that?
Mhm.
It's just the wording makes it a little bit
Okay, but-
ambiguous.
But you're all right with the intent?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had a couple
Support.
other things. Sorry, I have to scroll. There's two places where it says, how many members does your organization have? There's two different parts. It's under general information, and then I read it again on page 45, how many members do you have? So that's just redundant.
Yeah.
And
There's another repeat, if I can mention, maybe it needs to be there, but there's a repeat of the category A and B requests. It's under policy guidelines, and then again, it's under eligibility criteria. So I'm not sure, maybe that's just the form of a policy. But just as I read it through, it's a complete repeat, one page to the next.
Did you get that, Trace? Okay, and if it's,
I think it's just to differentiate so they understand there's an A and a B, and that in A's, you have to come in and present to council, and B's, you don't.
no,
Mm-hmm. But
twice.
but it says it twice.
So you just take out where it says grant funding exceeding 2,500 on the second bullet.
Which
That's
page
all.
are you on?
Well, it's
We're in
written.
the policy, the first page on the policy,
Yeah.
under policy guidelines. The first bullet speaks of category A and category B, and then the second and third bullet speaks again of how much the grant funding is.
Yes,
So we can
and
just
then
go-
again, it says it under eligibility criteria on the next page. So that's my comment.
Eligibility criteria, but, oh, I see, okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem like it needs to be in there quite that often. That's all.
Yeah.
okay?
Otherwise, I think it's well written, so I say
I
thanks.
think this is pretty much a testament that if this is our comments,
Yeah, there's just one more typo, could I?
typo?
Well, I mean, it's probably just a computer thing, and it's on the bottom of page 46, and it says, do you charge an annual membership? It should just say an, A-N, just get rid of the D.
Okay, I wanna get away from typos if I can. In eligibility criteria, that's page 42, I guess. Yep, the applicant must be able to demonstrate how the grant will assist the applicant in meeting the goals and objectives of the city. Should that not refer maybe to the OCP?
Well, it was intended to be OCP and SSP, so and the goal, and it could be, they could also reach out to the goals that we've put out there, right? So it's kind of left open to be whatever the goals are.
My point is that is my point. What are the goals? Where would they find the goals of the city?
Well, the goals of the city are, there is reference in the city documents somewhere in there that said OCP
It's right
and
at the
SSP.
beginning of the policy.
Forget where
Yeah.
it was.
I was just gonna say, the beginning of the policy, is that the paragraph you're talking of?
Not quite the beginning, I'm on
Eligibility
page 2
criteria.
of the policy, which is on, policy itself
Because
is
at the beginning of the
42 and
policy,
97.
it speaks to, especially in their efforts to promote or meet the
Okay.
goals and objectives of the city's official community plan and strategic sustainability plan.
Mhm.
Okay, we don't need to beat it up, that's fine. The next one, for me anyway, is council may request additional information, that's the next point down. Council may request additional information from any applicant. I don't really think this isn't really a criteria, it's just the fact that we may request more information.
So it'd be policy.
Yeah, whatever, but it's not a criteria, right? That we
Right.
may ask them more information, just simple point, and I know.
Sorry, just what page you on again?
On page 4297 of the
Yeah.
document, eligibility criteria, the third
Third
point
bullet.
down. Council may request additional information. I don't really think that's an eligibility requirement.
Okay,
But it could be in policy.
It could be somewhere, I'm not saying that, I just don't think it's criteria.
okay.
I think it said somewhere else, on the application too.
Okay, that's really all I have. Oh, well, I have one more unless somebody else wants to.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Gary. Just trying to think which point it is. Non-eligibility, the third bullet point, provide assistance to a business or compete with a business. In other words, not ineligible to provide assistance to a business, I totally agree, or compete with a business. Compete with a for-profit business. I'm just thinking about, specifically thinking about childcare.
Mm-hmm.
And we do subsidize childcare, and we do have private business that, works the childcare. So if our intent in this policy is not to subsidize childcare because there is childcare out there, then that's up to council. But I see it as it's a bit of maybe a bit of an issue. I've talked to the childcare people and on a different issue, and there is nowhere in Rossland, there is a huge need in Rossland for daycare for the youngest ones. I can't remember what it's called, the infant guys, and they're over there maybe adjusting their model just to deal specifically with the infants because there's a huge demand, and no private outfit right now is offering that because of the provincial requirements and all that stuff for how many kids you can have for how many. So I'm just a little bit concerned that if we don't have that somehow worded differently, that we may be cutting these people out, so.
I think just take it out.
Well, no, I don't think we should take it out altogether, I really don't.
Well,
But I don't know how you keep it in, I don't.
How about directly
Complicated.
competes with a for-profit business?
Well, like, we can wordsmith this
Yeah.
forever. Perhaps what we do is take this to the public, right, first, and then see what they come up with, and maybe we can get more there. But I just want to bring that to our attention, that if that's, everyone's clear with that, then we don't need to beat it up right now, Gary.
Well, I do think it brings up a good point around the daycare model that we have in Rossland with subsidized daycare from the city funding a daycare and then having private businesses running daycares, and probably those people without children now, and retirees and everyone else. I'm not exactly sure what their thoughts would be with, tax dollars going towards daycare. And then there's not a means test. Some people have mentioned that before. Where if a couple folks that are, I'm not going to pick on any profession, that have the ability to pay for it, but they're in our subsidized daycare, that might ruffle enough feathers in town, and maybe that's part of a question that goes back to the community almost in this discussion, specifically as a point, because we do subsidize a business that's competing with other businesses to a degree. I mean, they have paid staff, and maybe there's not somebody making profit from it, but it's still a business that's subsidized. So I don't think it's a slippery slope, but my point is that it could reflect the values that the community has, that they want to have something like that, and it would ruffle some other people's feathers that they have to compete with a subsidized business. But the question probably hasn't been brought up for, I don't know, several years, 7 or 8 years since that daycare, much more than that.
It has
no,
been brought up.
it's been brought up.
No, it's been brought up at council, the last council, Councilor Stradling brought it up many times. Not many times, but he brought it up for discussion in council, for sure.
Well, I would guess but in terms of public debate,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, and
I really sit nowhere on the fence. I mean, I don't really sit anywhere yet
Right.
on that. I mean, I've never used a daycare, so.
Right.
well, I think, and maybe this is a topic for another time of discussion, but, the value piece, right, and then the ability for the city to assist in many ways for, all these service groups, and, we pick and choose, and people use certain ones and other people don't use, and it's just about, in my mind, having that resource there so that families have a place to take their kids, and because otherwise, it's attractive piece. It makes us a full scope city, right, with regards to families looking, saying what kind of daycare facilities do you have, et cetera. And the whole philosophy under, government in general supporting daycare, I think is it's national and provincial and a local issue, right? And all I'm saying is that we have valued it because, we have continued to do it, but I mean, at any time that the debate can come to council, for sure.
And I don't disagree with that at all, Councillor Spear.
I didn't say you did.
Thanks,
He knows that.
thanks for interrupting.
Well,
All I'm,
comment was,
okay, keep interrupting, that's good. All I'm saying is that there's no means test. So if, and I'll use it, 2 doctors put their kids in that daycare across the street, they can afford a daycare that's a for-profit business. Simple as that. That's my only one point.
Councillor.
Since I'm sitting here on the side of the room with Councillor Fisher, I'd like to also say that if we didn't subsidize the daycare, there's no saying that another daycare wouldn't come in and take that space and do it as a for-profit. It's possible it would. Or also, if it changed its model and it just took infants, for instance, we might be able to differentiate between one that just deals with infants, which is a harder daycare to get licensed for, get whatever the qualifications are. Maybe that's what we decide we're going to support, and we let the market take care of the older kids, and then hopefully another business would start that would handle those kids. It's all possible.
I didn't want to start a debate on
I know, but I
childcare.
have to jump in now.
Certainly, I didn't want to start a debate on childcare. It's about an eligibility thing, and if we think that
Then
qualifications...
the other comment I'll make on that, then I
No,
think
just a sec.
we
No,
can
just a
leave
sec.
it in the, leave it in
No,
there.
come on.
Oh, can I just finish?
No, because I was here with me, and Councillor Walsh had her hand up.
Okay, I just didn't finish my thought before you jumped in.
Well, please, Councillor Walsh.
Okay, I know that Golden Bear started up because there was a severe lack of daycare in this community. So we need to remember that. And affordable daycare it's fundamental to a sustainable and resilient community. Now, I don't at all disagree that perhaps our daycare should be requested to do something along the lines that Councillor Fisher is mentioning. Certainly, there should be a means test and make sure that the people that need that subsidization are the ones that are first in line to get it. I completely agree with that. But we do have to be very careful, because the point that was stated that just tweaked me was, well, there's nothing to say that if it wasn't done and supported by the city and subsidized, there's nothing to say that somebody wouldn't move in with a for-profit situation. Well, when we go back, it's probably about 20 years ago that Golden Bear started up. At that point in time, no, there wasn't an option. And we have to be very careful not to remove this one and expect that somebody else would move in. It's just something to be very cautious of.
Just before I give the floor back to Councillor Moore, I don't want to debate about childcare. We're talking about a policy here, and I'm just wondering if there's a way, perhaps we take this to the public, but if there's a way, once the public has a look at it, then it can come back to us, and we can fine-tune that or whatever we want. But I just brought that up, and I'll never bring up another point ever again. I just brought that up because that would directly affect childcare. Yeah, I have to go there because I promised.
Well, I was going to support your suggestion.
Well, thank you.
Because I think taking it to the public is a really good idea. Get their feedback on it, let it come back to us, and also I think we have to be careful not to, say what happened 20 years ago is what's going to happen today, because times do change. We have a lot more kids in town too, so maybe a viable something. But I think I like the idea of letting the public have their say on it.
I just want to remind council that this is a policy and
That's
an
right.
application form, it's not a bylaw.
Right, so there is this council discretion always. Okay, so,
Yeah, I was going to say, so I think this is something, except for the few minor
right.
typos in this policy here, I think it's something that we were looking for, and we've been looking for a while, so I think it's very well done, except for those typos, and I think taking it to the public and getting feedback and then bringing it back to council is the way to go. But I think it's very well done. I like it.
That's an excellent segue. When are we going to take this to the public?
Oh, I was going to make some comments too.
Well, go ahead then.
Okay.
You wrote it.
No, I didn't write it.
Oh.
Staff wrote it. We
Oh.
just gave input. So where it talks about service agreements, and I say that's on page 43, it said something about, oh man, I can't find it.
All applicants will be required to enter into a service agreement drafted by the city.
Yes, I would just like to have that say drafted by and negotiated with the city, because I think it sounds like we're just shoving something down their throats, and I'd like to see it more something that we negotiate with the groups. On page 44, where it's required documentation, the checklist, I'd like to have another checklist there for strategic plan, like some of the groups that we're working with now have strategic plans, and if they have one, I'd like there to be a place for them to check it and include it, and if they don't have one, they can just say they don't have one. No big deal.
Sorry, you'll have
On page 44,
Yeah.
on checklist, just add, there's another item, a strategic plan.
Their strategic plan.
Yeah, their
Okay.
strategic plan, they have
Alright.
one, okay. And then, page 48, I'm just curious, I'd like, whoa, I lost it. I would like, where it says, does the city contribute any in-kind services to your organization? If yes, please describe. I'd like the groups to be able to say the value of that, even if they have to ask staff for the answer to that, because I think it's really important that all groups know the value of what they get from the city. So if it's there, it says, yes, please describe and list the value, they may have to come back to you and say, how much did Carnival cost this year, right? But then that it gets here, and I think it's good, I think that's good for them to have. And then the last thing, I'd be very happy that it's the last thing, but in the staff section, I'm just curious what's intended to go into the staff section. Are we going to put
Staff section.
Yeah,
Just
just
office
use
use only?
Yeah.
Well, that's for the things that we talked about in our meeting about, we would write in there, about the in-kind, how much the in-kind is, and confirm that.
Okay.
If they're using city facilities, we could write in if there's some capital that needs to be done to a city facility. That'll be all the extra information that we can get together for you.
Okay, that would be, because, that's, I mean, without listing specifically what you're looking for, like, one of the things that was important, like, what are competitive membership fees, like we talked about, some other facilities, that kind of thing. So you just will have that sort of loosely without having it dated there, the kinds of things you're looking for, okay.
When the application comes in, staff will review them first.
Right.
And put whatever supporting documentation we can together.
Okay.
So the council gets the full picture.
That's great,
Okay,
thank you, good job.
Thank you. I just want to jump into the service agreement.
Yeah.
It is the city that puts together the service agreement. That's our responsibility to do that. I know I've seen in one organization that's presented a service agreement that's copied from another city, and quite frankly, if we were to sign that, it would be not in our best interest to sign that. So the city has to be responsible for the service agreement, not the organization. We can say yes, maybe, whatever, but I just want to make that clear that it's up to the city to offer the service agreement to the club. Mr. Fisher?
I was just gonna make a comment, just on that one point about negotiating. I find that comment difficult for us to manage insofar as the approval for a grant application is made to the city through council. So it comes, presentation, council makes the decision, and then to go back and do a negotiation on the actual contract, I wouldn't want to have any, I'd like the contracts to be pretty much set, because I wouldn't want a whole lot of discretion given to staff on that, because it could potentially leave an opening for changing the way that the approval is given, if you know what I mean. So if the contracts are set, then if, in a subsequent thing, if the party and the staff can't come to an agreement on how the contract goes, the staff could come back to council and say, look, the proponents need to take their funding in a certain way, doesn't fit the contract, we can change it on a case-by-case basis, because I don't think they'll be that much different. So I like the idea that the contracts are fairly tight and set, and that on a case-by-case basis, staff brings it back to the city council to look at what that negotiation part of it piece could be, rather than leaving it in the staff's hands.
Okay. So I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I wrote down similarly, and I'll just be brief, but the word negotiate as well, so I was a little leery of that word. for most of the reasons that Councillor Fisher is saying there.
Okay, great.
The reason that I put it in there, it does not take anything away from council's ability to approve or disapprove of a contract, right? Because those contracts would come to us before. We're not giving staff ability to negotiate and sign off on something. It would come back to us. It was just more of a, I don't know. I just think that it's just drafted by staff just sounds like, drafted by the city just sounds like we're just.
We are.
Well, okay, all right, that's all right, if we're gonna be that way.
Okay, so our plan was to present this to the public, so now we need to know when we're presenting it to the public. We, Ms. Butler, we are not having a committee meeting on the,
We are not having a cow on December 2nd. We'd like to start the regular on December 9th at 5 instead.
so I'm just saying that perhaps we want to make time for the public to come in and see this on the 2nd in the evening, and maybe we provide another opportunity during the day. And I can be available both those days, and we can present it and they can ask questions. I don't know if we need a whole bunch of staff here, but if anyone thinks that the second evening and the third, I don't know how the third during the day, so that we make sure that everybody gets the opportunity. Is that too tight a time frame? I just want to do it before, I want to do it before the holiday season. That's what I want to do. And perhaps we're there now, I don't know, I'm supposed to put the Christmas lights up when I come
Yeah,
home.
we can definitely squeeze it in. We could do it like for, I don't know, from 2 to 5 on
Yeah,
the
something like
following
that.
day or something like that? On the 3rd?
I think the evening is, because the business will be closed, that's why I think Monday would be good. A Monday evening would be good, because a lot of the businesses may be closed, and then during the day, the next day, that's what I'm thinking. But I mean, it's up to council. You are being very patient.
December 2nd, the fire service report is being presented at 4 o'clock.
Okay, but I was thinking of the evening of the 2nd.
Okay, well, that's gonna be a couple of hours anyway, I would think.
We'll get to that report.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I still think that, we certainly all don't have to be down at the fire service report,
No.
right? And I don't think the staff will be there, so we could have our lovely volunteers or whomever on the 2nd. If everyone thinks that that's enough time to get the word out, that's the only question. Yes?
So, I'm unclear about the evening thing, so what would that look, are you saying that that council will be here? Could you just?
Well, just
I don't get
to
it.
present this to the public, so. the
Yeah, but
public
what do you
can-
mean present to the public? What does it look like? Are we all here sitting here, or is
Well,
it a committee, or?
Well, I'm thinking what we want is input from the public, so we put this form out,
Mm-hmm.
everybody gets it, we send an email out to all the groups with the form.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to bring your concerns to council, you can do it
About the form and.
7, and then the next day. I don't know,
I'm just wondering if it might be more effective, we put it on the website, we post the whole thing in its entirety in the Rossland News. I mean, do it in that way, as a draft, big draft across it, but do it in that way, maybe we'll get more feedback. If we just have this time when you can come to City Hall and read a document, I'm not sure that
Oh, we'll
many
get the
people will do
document. I'm
that.
not concerned about getting the document
no,
out there.
we'll send the document to every group that applies for money, so
Yeah.
they'll get the document.
Plus, we'll send the document out to the city email list, like we would a council agenda,
Okay.
right? So, and
So
then-
I guess I'm with Councillor Spear, I'm not sure what
Yeah, we
this
don't
looks
need,
like.
yeah.
Go ahead.
This would be for people who see it in the paper, want to come in and talk to council about their concerns, whether they like it, they hate it, whatever, and that we're here to listen to their
Yeah.
concerns, because it's a draft, we haven't made
It's
decisions on it
like
yet.
a town hall meeting.
Yeah, it's like a town hall meeting
It's
about
not
that.
it's not a committee of the
So-
whole or anything like that.
Yeah, well, people could talk. Laura could speak right up, right? That kind of thing. And also, I think it's too bad the press isn't here tonight, because they could start to get some word out about it as well,
But
right?
I can get that done.
Yeah.
If those dates are fine, then let's
Yeah.
just move on with that. And, I mean, I don't think it has to be
Yeah, and if
very
it's
formal.
not, if it's not a long enough time period, or
We'll do it again.
we need more feedback, we just extend it or whatever.
Do it again.
Mhm.
I think the main
Sounds
thing,
good.
as long as we get comment back from all the user groups.
That's right. And I think we
That's
can,
it.
we'll get the word out to
Yeah.
them immediately, so, I mean, I don't know if we want, Mrs. Geldridge to come and talk to the thing. I don't know if that would be relevant. I mean, she can certainly, she can certainly come and, My mother-in-law, she can
Oh.
certainly come and speak if she wishes, but, you know, the main focus is to get it out to the groups that use it, right?
Yeah.
And we can do that through the email list. So if it's okay with council, or maybe, we'll entertain a motion to do that. To have a town hall meeting at council chambers, whatever that date was,
December 2nd?
December 2nd.
7 to 9 p.m.
7 to 9, and then another one during the day,
December 3rd,
December 3rd at,
2 to 5?
sure, well, that's a long, yeah, 2 to 5, okay. All right, everybody happy with that? Moved by Councilor Moore, seconded by Councilor Fisher. Further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you.
Did we have a
Go ahead.
calendar on the 9th? Are we meeting at 5 o'clock? Is that right?
Yes. But you'll get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so I have a calendar out.
Request arise of correspondence, a letter dated the 3rd from the Arts and Culture requesting assignment of space for the sculpture. Motion that council approve the use of the sidewalk bump outs at the northwest side of the intersection of Columbia and Washington. Replacement of a rotating sculpture, and that's by the hardware, right?
Yeah.
Moved by Wallace, seconded by Spearn. Discussion, please.
I think it's great that our community is joining in with what Castlegar started. I know Nelson is joining in, Trails joining in, and I think it's a real draw for tourism, even local tourism, let alone from beyond. And I think that's a great location for it. So, there's my support.
Great. I think it's interesting too that you see the number of people getting their picture taken with Ulas, right? It's absolutely incredible, so.
Public
that-
art.
Huh?
Public art. Mhm.
Public art, so that, coming budget time, I'll be, asking council if they wish to have a statue of Ross Thompson, the founder of Roslyn, at Halloween. So anyway,
What's he look like?
I have his picture. On that motion, all in favor? Opposed, carried, thank you. Oh, sorry, and further that, sorry, I forgot. Just take a separate motion. Then the council approve the in-kind assistance from Public Works, moved by Spear and seconded by Moore. All in favor? Opposed, carried, thank you. See, I got that before staff threw something at me. Information items, a motion to receive the information items, with the request therein subject to whatever. Moved by Councilor Wallace, seconded by Councilor Fisher. Any items? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Bylaws, nil members' reports, Councilor Moore's notice of motion, moved by Councilor Moore. Is there a seconder? If you know the motion.
Read it.
Pardon?
I'm gonna reread it.
You're gonna read it?
Reread it.
Okay, reread it. I'll read it.
Would you like me to read it out loud?
No, I'm gonna read it, because the motion's already here. Motion that council procedure bylaw 2522 be brought forward to council to add a staff briefing session to the order of business, section 82A, for both the regular and in-camera agendas. Moved by Moore, seconded by Fisher. Discussion. Councilor Moore,
Okay.
you have your rationale, so.
Yeah, well, basically, just I really thought the information session that staff provided for us was very, very helpful. But there wasn't a single thing there that wouldn't have also been appropriate for the public or the press to hear. Had there been something that wasn't appropriate, we could have done that in an in-camera session. But I just think those kind of updates are really good, because it tells not only us, but the public what the city's working on, and that's a good thing. So that's why I put this book.
Councilor Fisher.
I don't really have anything on it.
Well, I'll just jump in then. I think that these briefing are working documents. I don't think they're public can read them, but they're not decisions of council. I mean, where we make decisions and what the public needs to know is the decisions we make here, and that's what that's the result of the information. I don't know that these working documents are really appropriate on a procedure bylaw. I think if we want to add more to a procedure bylaw, I mean, this is an exemplary example of timeliness. However, our meetings that go to 10:30, if we have that at the beginning of the meeting as well, I think we're pushing it. I think we can get information out to the public, but I think that these documents that you refer to are working documents, and I don't believe that they're appropriate in a procedure bylaw when a procedure bylaw is related to meetings. Further, you've already spoken.
Well,
Now, I don't want.
yeah, I guess, I mean, it hasn't really been that long since we've developed those briefing sessions, right? It's been this kind of term or whatever in the, you know, so-called briefing. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I honestly, I mean, I don't have a problem with, you know, the public or the media or anybody hearing our conversations around information that we're receiving from staff. So, but if it's going to extend meetings, I'm going to be honest, I'm not into having extra meetings on top of meetings and committee meetings. What's the reason, right?
I don't think anyone, and I know the intent is not to not have the public aware of things. I think the problem I have is the process, and putting it directly into the procedure bylaw, to me, I don't believe it should be there. This is what the working document, and if, I mean, there's 7 of us, 3,500 people, that's 500 each. We all represent 500 people each. We can tell them what we're working on if we want, but I don't think it has to be in the procedure bylaw. I think it would be onerous, and I think it would increase meeting time. Councillor Wallace was first.
Well, yeah, I guess that's where I'm going. The procedure bylaws is to guide actual council meetings. And the staff briefings the intention is not for any decision-making to occur. It's not a formal meeting. It's an opportunity for a more casual atmosphere for staff to make sure that council knows what's going on. But as the mayor just said, I mean, this is in progress stuff, and I don't see the need for it to be written into the procedure bylaw, and certainly it's not like we've had a lot of these anyway. So I just don't see the need. I'm kind of, that's about where I'm at.
Councillor Thatcher.
Well, I agree a lot with what Councillor Wallace said. And I was thinking, do we need them every 2 weeks? I was thinking, you know, more or less, you know, committee of the whole meeting, a briefing at the committee of the whole meeting instead of something on every 2 weeks. It might be more appropriate. There might be, you know, every 2 weeks there might not be enough, you know, enough stuff there to be brought up, or it's just going to be another line on the agenda. So I think a committee of the whole meeting, you know, a briefing before would be a better idea. But
okay. You spoke once. You good? Oh. Councillor, go ahead. Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Okay. For one thing, it wouldn't need to take up more time. We're still trying to get the information. So either you get the information in advance of the council meeting, as Councillor Spear and I did when we came to the staff briefing before, or you get it during the meeting when the public's there. There wasn't documents that were being done, right? It was just information. It gave us a chance to ask some questions, but then we got the information, so then there was no need for us to ask them again when the public was here. So the public missed whatever it was. There was nothing terribly significant. It was just little updates, right? Which, you know, I don't know. I err on the side of giving the public more information rather than less. So I don't see it as any, as far as if a line on the agenda, if staff had nothing to brief us on, it would say nil, like we have on our agenda now. If they don't have anything to say, they wouldn't say anything, and we'd carry on, right? And if it was something that was sensitive or whatever, that wouldn't be the place to bring it up. It would come up in an in-camera. So to me, it was just a way to be a little more open with the public. That was the intent.
Okay, and thank you, and I understand the intent, and I think the intent is admirable. However, I'll state again that this is a council procedure. This is a procedure of a meeting. This is a meeting where we make decisions. Staff briefing is outside of that, right? So you're talking about bringing it into the procedure of council, and I think that is not the right place for it. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed?
Opposed, sorry. I was gotten on to the next.
Motion is defeated. But thank you, and we certainly understand the intent.
Just for clarification, Your Worship?
Dinner.
What was it?
Yeah.
Just for clarification, that doesn't mean that we still can't have
No, absolutely
staff
not.
briefings, right? We're
No.
not putting it into
The
the formal,
procedure.
our bylaw, yes.
Procedure
I just want to
Well, we-
reiterate that for
For
my own
everyone, and I totally understand why. Next, members' reports. Do you have anything more for members' reports?
Oh, yeah, but we have the next thing up is Councillor Wallace.
I know, but we're in members' reports.
Oh, yeah, you want me to do my members report? Sure, I have lots. But part of it was probably would be better to talk after Councillor Wallace has talked about the RDKB. Because one of the things I want to talk about is what she's going to talk about. So I don't need to go first in members' report.
You already were first.
No, come on, half the time you call on Jill, she isn't ready, you move to the next person, I'm not ready.
No, but I just told you that we were in members' reports and you were already in members' reports.
That
so
you're
I'm being
most-
polite.
Okay, well, I'm not ready, I
Thank you,
want to talk
Councillor Wallace.
after Councillor Wallace.
Okay, so, this is regarding the Economic Development Service, and, I don't know, I can tell you that this motion, basically came out of about an hour's discussion of the East End Services Committee, and, in the end, it was a unanimous decision, and, it was a compromise, so that's where it's sitting.
Right on, and just for council, I was at the LCI meeting, whatever day it was last week, and this came up, and they were aware of it,
Oh, I'm sure they're very aware of it.
very aware of it. No, I don't, because it's, yes.
Well, the thing was that there was a request for significantly more than that. These are the funds that have not been spent over the 3 years of that contract. This is what's left over. We're estimating it around 140. In a meeting with the chair of the LTI and the chair of the LCCDT, it was suggested that in order to run that function, they need $150,000 for the LCI, they need a further $15,000 for the LCCDT. That $15,000 for the LCCDT has been a matter of contention for a number of years because it started as funds from the old Economic Development Service that have been sitting there in trust and were used basically, that was the intention at the time, as a transition time as they moved into this new model. And then the assumption became that they would just be funded through tax dollars to that amount on an annual basis. Anyway, so there's been some contention, and I felt, my intention was that there would be no taxation for this function in 2014. That's very much where I was going, and I did manage to pull that one off.
Right, everybody got that? There's no
Okay.
funding for that function for 2014 from the...
For the LCI.
LCI or
Oh.
LCCDT.
LCI or LCCDT.
The LCCDT is...
So they're going to be deleted.
They have 140, whatever grand it is, that they can use, but there'll be no taxation.
Oh, yeah, no taxation, yeah, yeah, I read that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm jumping on
No,
that.
that's all good. I mean, part of the frustration has been that they've been taking tax dollars and not using them and building a bank account with them. That's not okay.
They, as in?
The LCCDT or LCI. I mean, they work as
Mhm.
a unit. Okay. May I just ask through you, Chair, did either of you receive my member reports? I sent it just before
Yes, we
council.
did.
Okay, great. So moving on, I mentioned this earlier, the fire service study will be received by the East End Services on December 2nd at 4 p.m. At that point in time, it will become a public document. So I am, as it is not a public document yet, and I haven't seen it become one before it's received by the committee, I would suggest that there better not be any decisions made at that meeting.
Can I just ask the question, I think we've had the discussion before, are the partners in the Regional Fire Service getting to see this report before the public gets to see it?
I don't believe so, that's what I was trying to say, that,
I think that's
that
right.
it won't be a public document until it's received by the committee. It's a public meeting where it's being presented by the consultants, so certainly the public is welcome to attend. But, I haven't seen it yet, I don't have access to it yet.
Is that at the Regional District, Councillor Wallace?
The Muriel Griffiths room.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some work going on in the RDKB boardroom for getting the video conferencing up to date.
Okay, so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're suggesting that some of us go on the second.
Well, if you're interested, I
Well,
suppose.
we're
Yeah.
interested, we're interested. But if it's only
What day
to
is that?
receive,
Well, and but it also gives the opportunity to hear the presentation by the consultants.
Okay.
Okay, hospital meeting, there'll be a hospital meeting on Wednesday in Council Gar. There was a facility assessment done of the facilities in our region, by the Ministry of Health and IH. There's been some confusion about that report, to say the least. It hasn't been made public at this point in time. It's not the hospital boards to make it public. We didn't commission the report. We've seen it. So I'm assuming that it's going to be made public maybe this week. I don't know. But anyway, it's a really confusing document, and the board has been asking for some clarity. You know, what the intention is, like what's the public supposed to read in this? It's showing a huge deficit in our two major hospitals, and you know, what's the hospital board supposed to do with that? Are we supposed to plan for the future? What is the future? I mean, we're still in the same state of limbo. Anyway, and I attended a special meeting of the board last week regarding PSAP, which is the Public Safety Answer Point. It's not the primary part of the 911 service. And there is a report that will be released. It's not ours. Again, it was done by the Central Okanagan Regional District. That report will be released on November 30th. So I'll make sure that staff receive it, and it can be sent around to council members. It just speaks about the relationship between 911 delivery by RCMP increasing costs, etc. So it's a pretty considerable document. PEP committee, one of the directors requested that we look at the director remuneration. There has been a comparison done with the other districts. This is something that the regional district does on a every 3-year basis anyway. But there was a further request for staff to include all of the municipalities within the regional district. And so once that's received, I'll certainly share it with council. Just as a point of interest, I think we're one of the lowest paid councils you'll find anywhere.
For sure.
And then BC Transit, we received projected budgets that show considerable increases as we go into the next few years. A couple of the directors and myself met with the regional manager, and I don't know, Kevin Schubert was just, he was promoted up to another level. I'm not sure what he is now, but anyway, we met with them to discuss what is going on with our service in the area, and certainly we took on those expansion hours a couple of years ago, and it was an attempt to try to extend the service into the evenings, later on Friday night, try to get people out of their cars, try to encourage commuters to ride the bus. The numbers did go up for a while. Mm-hmm. They're going down. Mm-hmm. So, and we're looking at really significant increases in cost of the service, which is already an expensive service, one that we really don't control much. So, as we go forward, there's going to be ongoing discussions about the level of the service delivery, what those performance standards are, and try to look for efficiencies. At this point in time, I mean, there was a partnership with the school board. Well, I mean, it wasn't in writing. It was an intention to make sure that the kids could freely and easily get around and choose the school that they wanted to attend, etc. But since the school board made their decision to take the Rossland grade 10 to 12s down to the Crow, they've bought new buses, brand new school buses driving around. We're seeing the number of students decline, both because of a decline in population and because they're taking other means. So that was a big part of our discussion, was, you know, to take the focus off the school kids. If the school board's going to deliver the school kids around, then they can do it, and we will change the service so that it's better serving the rest of the population. So anyway, that's a discussion that'll be ongoing. I know I have a lot today. Environmental services. So the decision for the East End to go with the Multi-Material BC program for printed paper and packaging beginning in May of 2014. That does shift, and there's a cost savings there to the regional district. So there was a decision by the Environmental Services Committee, which is a committee of the whole board, to shift those resources to organic diversion. Because we have heard from our communities that they are looking for organic diversion, curbside pickup. And the other thing that does is it helps to extend the life of our landfills significantly. Preparing for shutting down landfills is a really expensive proposition, and there's been some audit work done to suggest that the funds that we have been putting away for closure of landfills is not nearly enough, and they've been suggesting way more. So anything that we can do to keep our landfills open longer and increase their life is a better use of money. So with organic diversion, we're going in that direction. So, oh, and this is nice, and I know it was in the paper, but I hope that everybody has heard this. The RDKB received the top award from Canadian Electrical Stewardship Association for the highest collection rates in the province for all electrical appliances and electronics coming back. So that's a big feather in the cap for our citizens who take advantage of the program. Anyway, oh yeah, and so we won $10,000. Which is supposed to go towards promotion and education, that kind of thing. And then sewerage. So at the last sewerage meeting, there's been ongoing discussions about our flow metering and trying to increase the accuracy of flow metering. The discussion has come back that there are challenges with getting anything better than a plus or minus 5% accuracy. So the discussion at the committee went back to a few years ago when there was a proposal for cost apportionment going to like a converted mix of population and water consumption. And with that discussion, I suggested that maybe we should ask that the staff to compile that data from the communities again about water usage. And it seemed like a pretty good idea for me, but I was defeated point blank. So, we won't be getting that information. And then at the liquid waste management planning meeting, I made a request, given the percolation testing that we had done and the results that we had done here. In speaking with the plan engineer, he said that in June of this year, they had looked into the cost of a hydrogeologic assessment for the viability of a satellite treatment plant here serving the Rossland population. And they considered it to be in a cost of about $5,000. So I made a motion to request an approval of spending that $5,000, which is already in the budget for the planning process. That money is available. I made a motion to spend it on the hydrogeologic assessment. I basically said, if we get the support, then, if all of the rest of you are right and there's no viability here, then I guess the discussion will be over. But I was flatly defeated on that as well. And then there was a motion made and carried with me in opposition that options 1 and 2 are to go to the public consult. So that's where it's at this point. And as far as I know, given correspondence from the Ministry of Environment previously that there should be consensus of the decision going out to the public, I'm waiting to hear what the ministry thinks is going on. The fact that Rossland did not approve that, or anyway. Okay, and then the Trail District Arts Council did a public consultation about the Charles Bailey Theatre, and they did make a presentation to the East End Committee last week, suggesting that the Trail District Arts Council take over the operation of the theatre. So there's been no decisions made at this point, but there is a presentation that's available in that agenda, and there would be cost involved. And then the other thing, and I just want to mention this, When we had snow and then rain and then freeze last week, Highway 3B going up and down the trail, there seemed to be some drainage situations in which there's a lot of water running across the highway, and when it freezes up hard, to me, that's a huge safety issue. So I don't know what we can do with that.
Well, I can tell you exactly why it happened, is because the MCON guy that drove by with the shovel in the back of his truck didn't get out and move some leaves off the, where the water courses in behind the curb. Exactly what happened.
So it dammed up? Did it dam up?
No, it just
Didn't go
bypassed where
right.
it usually goes.
But,
And
yeah, but there were
so
a number of full ice
I think-
jams
I
going
think-
across the highway.
yeah.
It was not
no, it was
good.
the water coming from right in that one spot, and, what can you do? You wanna send, MCON a letter or whatever?
Yeah, I actually do.
Okay.
So you want me to make that motion?
You
Requesting
can
that
also write
they,
a letter. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, yeah?
just a request to MCON to look at,
Drainage issues.
drainage issues along the ditches and make sure that the water is not coming onto the highway where it can freeze and cause safety
I
matters.
almost went out and did it myself, and I thought, no.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
Yeah, there was a truck that was flipped right there that day.
Yep.
Where the ice was, there was a truck that was flipped on the way down. I was
Okay,
going down the
we'll,
trail.
I'll craft something up and ask,
Yeah.
maybe we'll craft something up, maybe ask the question rather than tell them. Okay, all in favor? Carried.
Thank
Further?
you. I'm done.
Counselor Thatcher?
Oh, not much, just a reminder that that presentation by Donald Luxon's this Thursday, 1 to 4 here. And the annual general meeting for the museum is that night at 7 o'clock at the museum. That's about all I have. Pretty quiet.
Perfect. Counselor Spearn?
Very quiet. I've been trying, well, as far as the Neighborhood of Learning Committee, it's been, I mean, they've been working on, in helping and supporting with, the Seven Summits Learning Center, and I spoke with Aaron Guy, yesterday actually. And we have intention to call a formal meeting together of the group and just see where we are and do a little bit of assessment around, the needs, if there are still, and so that I can report to council, with regards to budget conversations coming up. So, that will be this week. I just had a question for staff about the word mark that we approved, and just an update on that, where we're at. Have we?
Okay.
Your worship, we were waiting for artwork to come back from Shelley.
You're waiting for it to come back?
Yeah, she
Oh.
was gonna give us what the business card should look like, what the letterhead should look like. That's what I'm assuming we'll get from her. But I'll follow up.
Okay, or I can if you like, but yeah, that would be great if you could follow up on that. And the other thing, I don't know if I should be saying that. Maybe needs to be in camera, actually. I was just curious about the annex and the situation with McLean School, and, you know, having Mike Kent here and seeing the usage of that of the annex. I just wonder if where we're kind of at, has staff had that a conversation or anything like that with
Yeah, I
the
think
school board?
Yeah, I think we gotta be careful there, so
Yeah.
we might have to go on camera, but I
Yeah.
think, it's my goal to have some conversations with a couple people there to see what their intent is, when we've had that discussion,
Thank you.
okay?
Yeah, thanks, and that's all I have.
Great, Counselor Moore?
Okay, I had a LCCDT meeting, which is where I saw the flipped truck on my way down the hill. There was an interesting guest presenter on biomass and efforts to do local, trying to get some local business started using that, sort of a new sector of energy, which is interesting. Talked about the community-directed funds, which, as you know, the region is getting $200,000 a year for 3 years from CBT, and we each municipality could put forward their representative, and we selected Jim Green. And then there were 3 at-large members who were selected by the groups themselves. And those have been announced as Nadine Tremblay to represent the arts and culture sector, and Betty Ann Marino, who's done a lot of volunteer stuff in the trail in the region. And then also one of our new business people, Anne-Marie Seguin, who's part of the couple that just bought Clancy's, to represent the business sector. So I thought that was pretty cool, actually. It's a good
It
group
is
of
cool.
people. Yeah, it's great. So then the LCCDT Energy Group is continuing to work with the minister on the rate disparity, and they're hoping to see some sort of action in the new year. They've got some good contacts with the ministry to be looking at that. The coordinator of the LCI, who is Terry Van Horn, went to the provincial nominee event, and that is where people who want to relocate to BC, but they're basically looking to buy a business to get in, they come and they see what's on offer. So she did a presentation about our region. The interesting thing is that if you're trying to invest in the Lower Mainland, you need to come in with $600,000. If you're trying to invest in more rural BC, you only have to come up with $200,000. Which is pretty nice. But she said she got about 7 or 8 inquiries of people who might be interested in businesses here, but most of them wanted bigger businesses than we currently have for sale in our region, which she thought was interesting. She said basically we need to look at packaging businesses. Like if there's 4 subways for sale, that would be of interest, but one got juiced is not, right? So that was kind of interesting, but it gave some direction on how to go from an active point of view. Yes.
Just on that, are you finished with the PMP part?
I am.
Okay, just for information, Alex Loeb got here on that program. You know Alex Loeb?
Yep, yeah.
Yeah, with their
They
trail,
came
their
here with
joyride, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Also, there was an update on the Invest Kootenai website, which the LCIC, it's a pay-to-play thing, right? You pay a fee and you get your listings on that site, and they're all for business, commercial, real estate, business, all the rest of it. And it gets automatically uploaded to the Opportunities BC, which is the provincial website for trade and economic development things. So that's given the area good exposure too. Update from Tech, they say they're going to do their reported shutdown scheduled for fall of 2014. They anticipate bringing in 600 temporary workers, so that could be a good economic boost as well. The Attainable Housing Group got the green light in the first phase of approval for the big grant that they put in to try and get the subsidized housing. And so that doesn't mean they have approval, but it's the first phase. They have to jump over a few more hurdles, which puts them in good position for the acquisition phase. So that's going forward. The Metallurgy Committee, which is really quite interesting, they're a group, part of the LCCDT, that works on finding kind of spin-off businesses that could come out of things that happen at Tech, and they work with CAST and they work with Selkirk, and they're also working with UBC, trying to exchange ideas and get ideas for businesses that might be able to be developed here in this area that would support Tech or maybe some of the other big industries. These guys happen to be focused on metallurgy. So that's interesting. They're expanding the business retention and expansion study that had been done under the auspices of the LCCDT and the LCIC to focus on research cluster for more tech ideas, to bring more tech companies to our region. The Trail Chamber talked about the work they're doing with the RDI, the Rural Development Institute, Selkirk College, for free digital media workshops that they're doing. They had basically all their classes were filled. That's for social media, cloud media, that kind of thing. And I thought, when I was down there, the Rossland Chamber is also a member of the LCCDT, although almost no one has shown up. But if Jody was here, I was going to suggest that would be good, because then it gives them an opportunity to promote the things that our local chamber is doing. The other communities talk about, what they're doing. Then, of course, Councillor Wallace covered the thing about the carryover of the money. And I guess my concern there was when we talked about it before, I thought one of the things that we had said was that we didn't want to completely do away with a regional economic development effort, like all these things I'm just talking about, but that we wanted to do it in a new way. We wanted to not do the big funding that we did before when there was a high-paid executive director and that kind of thing, but change the model a bit. So I was surprised that the group totally canned the funding for the LCCDT, which they came in and asked for $15,000 a year for the next 3 years, right? Because I actually do think the group has done, quite a few good things for the area. Their workforce renewal thing that I talked about at the last meeting, is a good way to promote our area. They were the ones that identified that people out on the coast who might be getting out of school or looking for jobs or looking to start companies or relocate don't even know anything about us, right? So part of our problem of not attracting families and people here is that people don't know that much about us. So anyway, so that was that. So I just worry a little bit that we may have thrown the baby out with the bathwater by cutting off entirely.
I just want to jump in there. I think that it's very encouraging to see the regional district start focusing on core services. It's very encouraging. I think we've been down this road 100 times, and if we don't focus at that level on core services, quite frankly, our tax requisition that comes to Rossland, it goes nothing but up. We keep it zero, they do whatever. I mean, they have to, regional district has to focus, in my opinion, on core services, and I do not believe economic development is a core service for the regional district. That is my rant.
Can I have a little one?
Sure.
Okay. The LCCDT will be getting about $140,000, and it's up to them to decide what the LCI needs and what they need to operate. There was a fair amount of discussion about why is economic development totally on the backs of the taxpayers? Why is there not any investment from our local businesses? Why are they not going out for funding elsewhere? And there will be a new agreement written this year because the old one dies on December 31st of 2013. There will be a one-year agreement set up. Part of that is deciding what the criteria is, and I think that part of that criteria is for the LCCDT to tell us how to run economic development in a way that is more cost-effective for the taxpayer, and where are they coming up with the rest of the money. Maybe it's, if they need 150, maybe they have 50 from tax dollars and they find the other 100. I don't know, but that can be part of what they do with those funds this year. I mean, the LCCDT, they are getting $140,000. It's up to them to decide what they're doing with it.
And just take away from my members' reports, because we'll try and streamline things one day. The LCI is seeking funding from other sources, as a member before.
Yeah, that's true. And also, to respond to Councillor Wallace's comment, they have gone other places to get funding. And they've done, the LCCDT has done a really good job leveraging funding for, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but, you know, the amount that was given to the attainable housing, you know, group, for one thing, that went out and did this whole study. I mean, it was, you know, many times what, I mean, it's sort of the similar thing that we do when we give money to groups here, right? So we give money to groups here and they leverage it. That group has leveraged money as well. So just so you know. Okay, I had some questions on broadband, and our task force member isn't here, but perhaps these staff could answer these questions.
Or maybe me. You
Or
never
maybe
know.
you. Okay, perfect. First of all, has the contract been signed?
Maybe
Worship,
me not.
I had a call from CBT last week. They expected there's 2 contracts that need to come to the city for review. They were expecting to get those to us by the end of the month, but now it's looking like more the middle of December that those 2 contracts will be coming forward.
Okay, that's great. And then the task force has been quite quiet, so I'm just curious as when we're likely to see, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be working on, you know, how the payment gets structured. You know, we have all this fiber going places, and you've got fiber going into a building, and the building has 5 tenants, right? Do we just collect from,
We're not
you know?
there yet.
Well, but I think those are the kinds of things that should be planned out before we get
They've been
we get
asked,
there.
and they've been asked, and the CBC reps say that's a little premature.
Okay, and same for finding internet service providers and trying to put a
Yes.
package together?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Apparently, the
that's
next
good.
step is these 2 agreements until they've been vetted through CBT and through the city.
Okay.
That's where we sit.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Okay, then I have had a bunch of people, and I don't think this is necessarily correct, but I didn't have the correct numbers to tell them, that think the city is, and I think this comes from Columbia, Washington, thinks the city is in a bad position debt-wise. So I was hoping that we could get an update of our long-term and short-term borrowing, just sort of something really simple that says, we have the capacity to borrow this is what we borrowed long-term, this is what we borrowed short-term. Like,
We just got that.
had that.
We just got that.
Cecile gave that to us recently.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah,
Really?
we don't have it here this evening, but I know
No.
we just had that, and the reason that, well, I'm not gonna go into all that, because we were in a shortage because we needed to borrow the money, the $4 million right now, but we were, I think it was 18 million or something we were
yeah, I
good
think-
for, or something like that.
I thought it was like we could borrow 15, but I couldn't remember the amount that we did.
But we don't
Now
have the
we've done
numbers
the
here
total.
right now
Okay.
in front of us, but.
Okay, let's see. Okay, and this came out of the email that was going on around today. I have a notice of motion that I want to ask staff to ask ISL for a list of invoices they submitted to the city for the Columbia, Washington project, and what each one was for. because one of the conversations that...
Is that a notice of motion?
Yeah, I'll have a notice of
Okay.
motion. I'll give the notice of motion. Actually, I had a notice of motion about the borrowing, so I'll do that one too. So I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
And then, I just wanted to make a comment, right, because I realize sometimes council or individuals get annoyed by the fact I ask questions, but I honestly think the questions that I'm asking are things that we should know, or we should have we should have, like, we shouldn't have to ask to be, updated on things that are going on with an active development permit, for instance, like I asked about things, and I appreciate the answers that came in the information package from the planning department, so that's good, but the same thing with asking for a full accounting of Columbia, Washington. I mean, those things should be sort of automatic, and, the same with, financial information. So, anyway, I think that's
Okay,
all
I think,
have.
I think that,
I did.
I agree that we all should have every ounce of information possible, but I
Not
think when
every
when we start asking staff to deviate from what they're focusing on, we have to be very careful. I mean, because you wish information about something, or Ms. Spearman wishes information or something, is fine, if it's done properly, but just to send an email, say, please respond to all these questions, we have so many things that are happening right now. The sewer, which I'll just jump into members' reports right now, the sewer arbitration is, we meet with a lawyer Wednesday with our task force to update the lawyer from the task force point of view and staff's point of view. There's a whole bunch of stuff that Tracy has to get up to in speed there. There's the budget stuff that's flying. There is the, well, it'll go on forever. AGLG now just requested more staff time, substantially more staff time. So we, while it's great to ask questions, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing things properly. And I agree that you should be able to get that information in a minute. Unfortunately, there are things that are happening that you're just gonna have to wait.
No, I'm...
So that's where that's at, and we're not gonna
waiting.
debate that, we're not gonna debate that, but I just,
No, I don't
the
mind
information's all
waiting.
there. But to say it should be automatic, well, maybe it's automatic in the city of Toronto, but it's not necessarily automatic here, because we have to focus, staff has to focus on their jobs and the immediacy and council's policies and directions. They have to focus on that. Any further on members? Councillor?
No.
Thank you. Just another quick one. Oh, I already said it. Sewer lawyer and the task force says, Wednesday, very important. And museum, we've already mentioned. So, okay, I'm good.
Oh, I have a question about the museums.
Sure.
So the presentation that I went to at the museum, is that going to be the presentation?
Well,
So-
it's,
What,
this is the final presentation.
so this is beyond that presentation that I went to at the museum already?
But the presentation that you saw already
Is part of this?
is part
but-
of it, yeah.
But this is...
This is the final
This is
report.
for the public, this presentation, or is it just for council?
It's for council's information right now, and then we'll go public.
And that's from 1 to 4?
Well, that's the only time left.
Yeah, well, I'll just try and get here if I can, when I can. What day is that, Wednesday?
Thursday.
What time? 1 to 4?
1 to 4.
Here?
Yep.
Just had a question. It said council as observers, and
Yeah.
observers was highlighted. That means, like, we're not supposed to say anything?
No,
Okay. And why is that?
because it's being presented to the Gateway project right now.
Oh, it's being presented to the task force?
That's right, but
Oh.
if you wanted to see what's going on, that's why we thought we'd do that, so if you want to see what's going on, then you're more than welcome. But it'll come for our discussions.
Okay,
Oh,
just,
it's gonna come again?
board
Well,
meeting.
for us, we will see it officially,
Yeah, but the presentation.
but the presentation is to the Gateway project team.
Got it, thank you.
I have, board meeting in Grand Forks that night, so we'll see if I'm able to attend any of it or not.
Anyway, looking forward to it. Okay,
Worship, just, 2 things. So budget for December 2nd is canceled and replaced with the,
yeah.
questionnaire. So what staff is proposing that we have a committee of the whole on December the 9th from 5 to 7. So the regular will follow. I'll bring food in for that, I promise. And that 2 hours, our accountant controller is asking that she's going to hand out the information at the meeting because it's all in new format. She wants to walk council through what she's done and her thought processes into it. She doesn't want it to be a question and answer period, because she wants to use up that full 2 hours to present how she's going about doing it
Okay.
and how she has put it together. So, but then what she has asked is that perhaps the following week, we have a meeting during the day, a strict budget meeting, where it's all questions and answers. And we're thinking about doing that during the day on Thursday, December the 19th, and we're wondering about availability of council for that date.
What time?
You tell us, I think you're done school.
No, not done.
No?
I'm working. Will do.
What kind of time could we do it on the 19th?
So what's it for on the 19th again? Sorry, that's the
A
question and
budget
answer then.
meeting.
It's so those are both budget meetings. The
Yeah.
first one is
The first
she's
one is
presenting.
she's presenting,
Okay.
and
This
then
is all
on the
obviously.
19th, it will be the one open for questions, discussion, answers. It will be a committee of the whole.
How long do you need?
I'm probably good after 3:30 or so.
I'm day shift.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 to 5. What time do you
I'm day
finish?
shift, I don't, up till 5:15, so.
Oh, you're out.
Not
Oh, we could do
I'm
5,
good
5 to
whenever, so.
7.
I'm open.
Oh, I don't know, it's
I'm not here Thursday evening.
so,
Can
All right.
anybody propose another time that we can do this?
like the same day, or you mean a different day?
Could be
I'm good on
Wednesday.
Wednesdays, Wednesday evening.
Yeah, what about the Wednesday prior to that, the 18th?
Yeah, we could do the 18th.
Okay,
Would that
Wednesday
be
at
the
5?
day shift
Five?
on the 18th?
Yeah.
5?
18th. I'm day shift on the 18th.
Yeah, at 5, could
So
you
when
do
do
5
you-
to
Like,
7?
yeah, I could probably be, I'll be a few minutes
Is it
late.
late?
Yeah, but that's all right, you can be a few minutes late. Wally?
Yeah, I can do 5 o'clock
Okay.
on the 18th.
December 18th at 5 it is.
Okay. Motion that the remainder of the meeting of November 25th, 13 be closed to the public pursuant to Section 91G, litigation of the community charter. It wasn't litigation of the community charter, but
Litigation of the
litigation of
charter.
the community charter. Okay? 2-minute break and then we'll go into camera. Oh, sorry, all in favor. I need a motion. Moved by
So
Spear,
moved.
seconded by Wallace. All in favor? Carried, we're in camera.
Wednesday, December 18th. It's like a week before
Sorry.
Christmas.
You've been sick for
I know,
2
too
weeks?
long.
3 weeks?
Yeah, I just thought I was getting over it and the way it came again. His granddaughter and I were walking down the golf course the other day, and number 8